All right, so first impressions. Obviously, all these mountains are going to need some kind of label. Probably more than one. I would divide it up into like I think four distinct parts. It's going to be this mid range. Seems like it could be its own sort of mountain range. This up here might not be its own. It's pretty well connected to this. I almost want to like just destroy this part here, but if you're going for a spine of the world type effect, then I get that. But at least some of these mountains up here definitely look like they're unique enough to have names. Down here, these look a lot gentler. I'm thinking that there's going to be some kind of maybe even like a shepherd-ish community. These are almost more like very large hills that are relatively evenly spaced. So easier to live under. And then these down here, obviously, these are like it's pretty intense. It's a bunch of like very very small but like very concentrated. It's surrounded by like for some reason it gives me the impression of being like jagged. So this one to me seems like harsh, you know. And you know, so this one over here, I don't know. I don't know what's necessarily going on with that one. It looks grayer, which I assume is just an interesting stylistic choice. And then one aspect is just that like any body of like especially fresh water, but basically any body of water at all, is gonna absolutely have at least one like pretty major community, like city or town that's built up near it. So down here you've already got water tap. I think it says. I could zoom in, but I'm too lazy. This one over here I think should have its own. Probably like on this little nub, on its own major city, and like I would. There's a pretty decent chance that these islands in between would be sort of contested territory of some kind. Probably the one. Ooh, actually, an interesting like political dynamic would be that Watertap would have possession of these islands and have military bases on them, but this city would have like most of the civilians that live there, because that kind of thing happens often. So there would be like a really tense situation on those islands. Obviously, these islands over here need something. This one's a bit tougher. I do think it makes sense for each one to have its own town. Whether or not they get along. Well, this one would have a town that did exist. Given its proximity to Nalem Stream, that town's probably fucked up. We could have an interesting like ghost town type scenario going on there, where it's like very corrupted by magic to the point of being like a fucking ghost story that these ones tell their kids, but a very real ghost story because it's like 5 feet away. Things probably actually raid the village from there, or towns from there. What else? Yeah, Salt Wake. Is that salt water? I'm just curious because it's very far from any body of salt water, but it's called Salt Wake, so I feel like it like has to be, right. I don't know, but like yeah, I think that there could be a really interesting like little community nestled in here that would probably be pretty peaceful, I'd think, because there is not much room to expand and not much room for enemies. They would have like, presumably there would also be maybe like a country. I'm not thinking like countries right now, but there would also be maybe like a country up here, and this would be like a little independent city-state type deal. So they would have some kind of like military, like defensive shit going on up there. I should think. You've obviously got this huge ass fucking forest down here with a lake right next to the mire. And we got to do something with that. The question is what? It's like kind of far enough from any of the god, dissensions. Is Leylat's drop a... Did one of the ascended gods die there? Is that what that is? Because like, if so, then is water tap all right? I'm a little concerned for them now. Anyways, it's pretty far from many of those, so we wouldn't make it like a corrupted forest or anything like that, like the way that the town up there would be. It would be maybe like elves. We could do the classic elvish thing. That could be where elves come from. Maybe gnomes and stuff. There are also some scattered forests over here that I didn't notice on my first look. Like this, not in the forest, but like right next to this forest on the coast, there would definitely be a pretty major community. Maybe even like nestled in the mountains over here, so that they had access to the resources. Tons of villages up in here that would be like vassaled to the major city. Although no, I mean, because yeah, this city would have access to that forest, so that could be like sort of contested territory, almost split right down the middle with tons of overlap, causing like major diplomatic issues. Sucks for this city in that case because they've got contested territory on fucking both sides. They're like constantly fighting somebody. Yeah, these islands out over here, I kind of like the idea of making them like no one ever returns from those kind of deals. You know what I mean? Fuck, it's tough to scroll around this thing. Fury Strait. It sounds like you have some kind of idea of what that's going to be like. Yeah, we could. I don't know exactly where the oh fuck, what's it called? The line that makes everything hot on a globe. I don't know exactly where that is, but if that were to, I hope you understand what I mean when I say that. If that were to line up with Fury Strait, we could make Fury Strait just like a very competitive, typically competitive civilizations exist closer to that line and more like it did on a smaller scale, like competitive between villages and shit, as opposed to competitive between countries where it doesn't really matter so much. It exists on that line. So the Isles of Sket sound cool, look cool. Don't know what they're gonna do. The Frostfang, it's up north, so it's gonna be cold, obviously. So I mean, we could do another sort of classic thing, make that the vaguely Nordic countries, like the Viking type shit. It's always just a decent option. I mean, like it kind of just makes logical sense that the civilization living on a barren, frozen wasteland would need to raid other places. Although that's not even true of the Vikings, right? They actually their problem was not that they came from frozen wastelands. The problem was overpopulation because they had very efficient farms, I think. So it's like, ironically, the exact opposite. It's just that they had a lot of food, people overpopulated, and then they just kind of went off to raid other places. But whatever, we could do it with the Viking shit, or we could do Russia. Russia would just be like essentially the antithesis of down in the Fury Strait. It's like we can make a sort of Kropotkin style cooperative anarchist society, which will be cool as a subversion of tropes that is like not unrealistic, but people would, I think, see it as unrealistic anyways. So, you know, we might not want to do that. A lot of people probably feel like they were cheated out of the Nordic Civ shit. And then these things down here. I want there to at least be a legend that these had been made during like the God War, that the battle had literally like fractured the land off of itself and scattered it into the ocean. Either way, these are really interesting. If the Fury Islands, the Fury Strait, what it was called, if the Fury, yeah, the Fury Strait, if the Fury Strait is on uh, the line, the meridian, the equilibrium. Why can't I think of it? If it is on that the line dividing hemispheres, then or whatever, then these would be too. Presumably, it looks like they follow the same sort of latitude, and in that case, these would also probably be, you know, semi-tropical kind of Mediterranean islands, which could make for some like interesting Hawaiian type civilizations, and like, you know, the old kingdoms with spanned islands, and or like Polynesian, I guess would be the better way to put it. The old kingdoms that spanned multiple islands and had a huge naval like inclination. I'm not thinking too much about like races right now. I'm thinking more just I guess politics. Again, elves could come from here, gnomes possibly too. We could have some kind of lizard people from here. I don't know if that's a race you want to even entertain at this point. This could even have like merfolk of some kind, potentially, or the Fury Strait. Fury Strait could have Furies. That would be fine. I kind of like that this unrelated note. I mean, like, you know, this could be dwarves, because it seems like a whole kingdom unto itself. Orc dwarves could just be scattered all across these mountains, but you know, it makes sense to make them mountains. It's just kind of the classic. And then humans presumably would be scattered across the center, primarily. Humans can be wherever the fuck we want. It doesn't matter. They're humans. No one cares. What races are we even? Have we talked about them? Birds. Probably the bird people would be on at least parts of this mountain range. Dwarves would be over in this mountain range. Maybe even like they both. Maybe even like the bird people used to be on both, but then like the dwarves kicked them out of this one. I forget. This is only one continent on the world, right? And there is more than one. So it's possible that dwarves even came in, like immigrated, and just like kind of murdered all the birds over here, and they've got a major like racial conflict now as a result of that. That would be kind of cool. Yeah, and then if we have some kind of Nordic race, you know, this would be the place for that. This has to be something. Yeah, it's got to be something. Just off the top of my head, it used to be that whatever civilization, or it could be two civilizations here, because this mountain range makes it a natural barrier. Whatever civilization lived here used to also have civilizations on this, and now they don't even have like any unified tale about it. Some particularly jubilant drunken people might claim they know what it is, but they just know not to go there ever again. And like everyone who used to live there some generations ago, they're all like lost for some reason. It could be like a necromancer, could be, you know, like a lich kind of deal. It could be some kind of massive creature, or even just another race, maybe some kind of demonic race. I don't know. It could be anything. There's a lot. There's a lot of possibilities going on there. I'm kind of curious about the Cinder Split Sea. Just because I guess it's just Cinder Gulf, and then the Cinder Split splits the sea from the Gulf, I suppose. It just sounds like a cool name. Maybe the Sea of Hubris was carved out during the God War. Like during the actual fighting, that is. Yeah, that's most of my first impressions. It's already a 15-minute video, so sorry for that. Norbitan. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what ideas you even have for things like the Isles of Sket and other named places. This is a pretty cool little civilization. I don't have a perfect idea of the scale. So if you could like put one of the little like 1 mile equals this things on here. Obviously that's going to take some thought in the first place. That right now I'm sort of, I think I'm, yeah, it's pretty big, right? It's, I'm operating on the assumption that water water tap is like a large, like a very large city state type deal, um, which would mean that, yeah, okay, because it says right there to Broca, so that's a city, which means like this thing's large enough to contain multiple cities by the look of it, like multiple major cities presumably. So yeah, that's about the scale that I presume. Still, like some kind of 1 mile thing would be pretty cool. Anyways, yeah. So